I was an undercover security officer at Walt Disney World. I found their darkest secret. Good morning. I'm writing this on my phone, so please have patience with any grammatical or formatting errors. This post got removed originally, and I messaged the mods. They said they had no idea how it happened. I've been finding small silhouettes of Mickey Mouse outside of my house. Here's the repost, and an update is in the works. To start off, I now reside in a completely different state after leaving my job at the Walt Disney Resort in Orlando. I used to be what one Redditor described as a suit. I'm one of the guys that walk around the park in plain sight, yet hidden to the public. I'm part of an elite group of black polo sporting undercover security officers that specialize in worse things than shoplifters and unruly park guests. You see, as stated prior to this post on our No Sleep, if you are at Disney World and you see more than a few guys in one place wearing black polos, then you are most likely in danger, and you should leave the area immediately. The sad part is that we're so good at blending into the woodwork that you wouldn't even notice us. Anyway, let me cut to the chase here. I've seen some pretty weird things at Disney World in my time. These anomalies that everyone speaks of, well, they are true, but they're the least of our concerns. See, the thing is, when you take hundreds of thousands of people and cram them into a relatively small space, weird shit is gonna happen. We've had kids, even adults, get lost in the park. Cryptozoological sightings, alien sightings, ghost sightings, and just generally unexplainable things happen all the time. I was a senior special security officer during the height of my time there, and got called for some pretty dark shit. Many of you think we, as in security detail I was in, were covering up for Disney Corp, but in our true nature, we were just damage controlling, were kept out of the loop of many things, and we were trained not to question, but to defuse. There was one thing, though, that to this day still bothers me. A cast member called us on Nextel to report a group of 4 children had gone missing on the land. Of course I thought it was just another one of those anomalies. For those who don't know, the eerily calming nature ride called Living with the Land. It's located on the Land and the Sea Pavilion over by Soarin'. The odd thing about this report is that we never received one of these complaints before. And, of course, we're issued cover-up stories to tell cast members or guests to calm them down. My colleague calmly came up with a story that explained that the kids were part of an educational program, and they exited the boat with a guide and were escorted into the botany lab that exists on the ride. I told her not to ask any questions or talk about the incident as to not spread false rumors. I had my colleague escort her to a nearby security office to have her sign some forms. My human nature took over, and I got curious and entered the ride on the next boat alone. Living with the Land is a boring and not particularly popular ride, so I can understand how the kids would be on a boat alone, and also how I could get a boat by myself. I noticed absolutely nothing until I came to the part of the ride that has a prairie farmhouse. It looks like a faux house, but something about it never quite sat right with me. As I've done hundreds of times before on rides, I jumped off the boat onto the scene where the house is. I noticed something funny though. There were no pressure mats and the boat went away, allowing about a good 30 seconds before the next boat got to the scene. I've never seen a ride with no pressure mats to detect if anyone disembarks the ride. So, quick recap. Kids disappear on ride. I show up, feed the cast member who reported it some kind of story about how they disembarked mid-ride. And they're on a tour of the lab and told her not to question it. Colleague of mine takes her away to debrief. I contact the new cast member operating the ride and tell him to put some space between the next boat, as I'm looking for a wedding ring. Bullshit, I know, but so what? I slowly started to walk up to the faux house, climbing the steps of the porch, and I noticed a small emblem on the left window. It's a small square with a compass symbol. Interesting that a Masonic symbol is hidden here. I figured whoever built the ride was a Freemason, so I brushed it off. I looked in the house but saw nothing but curtains with black plywood behind them. I thought that there was nothing to see here, but something inside me decided that it wasn't good enough. The front door gilded open to a bright room with a black and white checkerboard floor. There was a marble altar-like table on the opposite end of the room, with some weird throne-like chair built in front of it, and a gold cup on the tabletop. There was another thing. It was a noticeably heavy wooden door on the other end of the room that was locked. There were no windows or anything else. I thought it was weird because I was always under the impression that this house was fake. Human nature took over again, and, against my better judgment, I tried the door in the room. But I was relieved when it was locked. I tried my keys, but none of them worked. Here's the thing. At Disney, we use a lock system called BEST. This had interchangeable cores that have assigned numbers or letters. This is so we can get keys issued for certain areas. I have the General Master Key, which is essentially the real key to the kingdom. Interesting thing about this lock was that my master didn't open it. I took a closer look and it was a BEST lock, but the inscription said CC on it, which I've never seen before. Since the door wasn't open, I decided that it was best to just leave. On my way out, I noticed that on the floor there was a fast pass printed out for Soren. I picked it up and pocketed it. It's amazing how trash works its way into odd places. I am going to figure out where these kids went. I rode the boat back out to the platform and then went to the Epcot security office to play back some footage from the DVR. It took me a while, but I zeroed in on the period where the kids entered the Land and Sea Pavilion and followed them. There were 4 kids in total, 3 girls and 1 boy. The girls' actions were almost robotic. It sent a chill up my spine. They walked in a straight line through the pavilion, but what scared me was the man escorting them through the place. I paused and took a closer look when I realized he was wearing a black polo and khakis. The same thing I was wearing. Holy shit. I even recognized him. He was one of my colleagues. Alan is the guy that was at the scene before I got there. He's the same guy who fed the cast member the controlled podium bullshit about the kids going on a tour. I thought maybe he did actually send them on a tour of the Botanic Lab and lost track of them. Until I hit play on the film. The boy was not walking in line and I could tell he was giving Alan problems. He keeps venturing away and getting distracted by various things in the pavilion. The benefit of the doubt that I gave Alan subsided when I saw the kid go press a button for the Fast Pass on Soren and take the paper Fast Pass almost like a prize. Alan then tugged him away and stood back and observed the kids as they walked through the Living with the Land. I saw them get on the boat. I saw them go through the storm scene, through the rainforest scene, then through the desert scene. After the desert scene, I lost the boat on the camera. The ride stopped momentarily. You could see it in the other scenes. Once it resumed, I saw the boat again in the scene with the pictures of the farmers, but the boat was empty. I also saw freaking Alan looking down off the observation deck, which explains how he got there so quickly. I switched the cameras back to the live view and left the area. I haven't been exactly honest with you thus far. I know a lot of things of what Disney does and things that we respond to and regular security officers that deal with it. I've seen them experiment and do so many things such as eugenics, pharmaceutical engineering, even experimenting with gas. Have you ever noticed that on both Spaceship Earth and the monorail, you get a strange, calm feeling on those rides? Well, they're pumping low doses of laughing gas in that area. Ever heard of Room Zero? They wear gas masks in there for a reason. Ever hear of Gascots? Well, that's not important right now. But I would encourage you to research it. I never thought that what we did was okay by containing these dark secrets, but it paid well. I've seen them inject some experimental drugs on guests and throw them back out there. Our job was to monitor and contain them if things went haywire. I know that I'm the bad guy, but this wasn't normal. This wasn't procedural. First thing I did was go over to the room where we kept the keys. I looked through the logbooks for a core labeled CC. I found it, but it had no zone or specific location issued to the core, and the number of the copies were marked as 1. This key was in our system, but my master key didn't open it. So I grabbed the, quote, core key, unquote, and a few Zone 1 cores. The core key was a specific key that inserted into the lock and would remove the core so it could be replaced with another. I put this in my pocket and made a beeline for the Land in the Sea Pavilion. I may be paranoid, but I swear I saw Alan following me in the shadows. I got to the ride and then I got to the house, and back to the front door of the Masonic room. I locked the door as I entered. I inserted the core key into the lock on the wooden door, removed the core, and inserted the Zone 1 core into the lock. Now my master key will open the door. And boy did it. The door glided open. It was heavy and steel on the other side of that wood face. There was a velvet red carpet leading down to some kind of utilidor. But we're in Epcot. What the hell? There was one small utilidor in Epcot, but it doesn't go this deep. I descended the stairs down the red carpet hallway to these two double doors. Behind the double doors was my answer, and the truth to what happened to those kids. Through these doors was the darkest side of Disney. A side of Disney that I couldn't believe Walt would be in favor of. Or is this one of Eisner's little ideas to make money off guests? Behind these doors was a dimly lit room, with a small circular platform in the center. The carpet was the same lush red velvet carpet from the hallway. There were 6 leather armchairs around the circular platform, all with telephones and card readers next to the table in the chair. I knew what was going on. I knew what was happening here. This is one thing I will not cover up for Disney Corp. I stood there in disbelief and horror as I noticed a small door towards the back of the room. I went open and popped out the CC core and put it in my pocket. I put the Zone 1 core in and I heard someone clear their throat from the other side of the room. It was Alan. He had an annoyed look on his face and he held a gun trained at me. I slowly propped the door open on the latch and turned to face him. "You never should have come here," he said to me as he was stepping towards me. "So this is what you and your scumbag friends resorted to? We did some pretty fucked up shit, Alan, but this is a new low for you and your disgusting friends." I had my hand at my side, slipping the Zone 1 core out of the handle and into my pocket. "It's not going to matter. No one's going to find out." He raised the gun like something out of an action movie. I ripped the door open as he pulled the trigger and the bullet hit the door. I jumped backwards through the doorway and shut it behind me. This asshole was stuck because I had both cores in my pocket. So there was no way he could open the door. He started shooting the door and I moved forward. I walked down a hallway with these small cell-like rooms lining the hall, and inside the rooms were play school chairs and toys. I checked every single one of them and they were all empty. I got to the end of the hall and there was this huge metal-like door. I popped the last Zone 1 core into the door and replaced the CC core. I pulled the steel door open to hit the face of sunlight. I was outside of some utility road off the premises of Epcot. The road led away. I was too late. They were already gone for good. I called the police, but they never came. I called the FBI and they never took me seriously. Hell, I even called the CIA, but they said they didn't deal with domestic issues like that and referred me back to the FBI. I even showed up at the Orange County Police Department HQ. They took a report and I heard something fall into the trash when I was leaving. Disney is good at what they do. They are good at keeping secrets, and they are good at controlling any outside force that attempt to bring their secrets to light. I'm lucky I saw the sunlight again, and I'm lucky that I had some time to leave the state before they got to me. If you go there, please keep your kids close, and watch out for the guys in black polos. They may be monitoring you, but they may be responding to something that will put you in danger. As far as I know, they aren't the ones that pick out the merchandise. I don't even know who does that.